Well, greetings in Jesus' name, brothers and sisters. In 1 Kings chapter 8, we read that after Solomon finished building the temple, he wanted to dedicate it. He brought the Ark of the Covenant into the most holy place, and they had a massive celebration. And Solomon had a long prayer, and they had lots of sacrifices, and all kinds of stuff was happening, a big assembly. But I want to get to read these verses from 1 Kings chapter 8, starting in verse 56. It is Solomon's benediction, his blessing of the people at the end of his prayer of dedication. This is what he says. Let me just read it for you. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 56. Blessed be the Lord who has given rest to his people Israel according to all that he promised. Not one word has failed of all his good promise which he spoke by Moses his servant. The Lord our God be with us as he was with our fathers. May he not leave us or forsake us, that he may incline our hearts to him, to walk in all his ways and to keep his commandments, his statutes, and his rules, which he commanded our fathers. Let these words of mine, with which I have pleaded before the Lord, be near to the Lord our God day and night. And may he maintain the cause of his servant and the cause of his people Israel as each day requires, that all the peoples of the earth may know that the Lord is God, there is no other. Let your heart therefore be wholly true to the Lord our God, walking in his statutes and keeping his commandments as at this day. There's an incredible amount, an incredible wealth of things to talk about in these verses and places we could go. But the one place I want to zoom in on is on that final verse that I read. Let your heart therefore be wholly true to the Lord our God, walking in his statutes and keeping his commandments as at this day. In response to his dedication, in response to his asking God to bring his presence there and to pay attention to his people's prayers, and in response to asking for his blessing on the people, he ends it by turning to them and saying, now, what God is going to do, you let your heart be wholly true. You walk in his commands and his statutes. And I can tell you that what I can exhort you today, that what I ask of you today, that what is being asked of you by the Bible today as a follower of Jesus is no different now than it was then. Let your heart be wholly true to him and to walk in his commandments. There is, however, and this is what I want to bring to your mind today, there is one major difference between what we are asked of today, or how we're asked of it today, and what he is asking of them in regards to walking in his commandments and letting our hearts be wholly true. For them, when they were hearing this, when they were walking out obedience, when they were sacrificing their sacrifices, when they were keeping their statutes and the commandments, they were doing so that they might be saved. This was the requirements that God had laid out for them. And as we all know, nobody could fulfill and walk in complete, perfect wholeness before God in keeping his commandments. No one. The big thing that has changed is that the Bible is clear. Paul wrote these words in Galatians chapter 4, verse 4, that when the time was right, God sent his son to be born of a woman, born under the law, so that he might set those free who are under the law. That's us, that's you and I. And Jesus came to do what none of us could do, to atone for our sin, to be the sacrifice that was acceptable unto God, to redeem us so that we might be right with God again. We no longer are exhorted, are encouraged, are asked, are commanded to walk holy before God, right before God, to be wholly true to him and to walk in his statute, keep his commandments. We're no longer asked to do that so that we are saved. We are now asked to do that because we are saved. This is the difference. It could not be overstated. The position from which we do it. It is not so that we are saved, but because we are saved. But the maxim doesn't change, does it? We are still to give ourselves fully to the Lord, not in order to be right with him. That happened through Jesus. We have to trust in what Jesus did for us. But we still give ourselves wholly to the Lord because we are right with him, because of what Jesus has done. Because of the great love which he has lavished upon us, that we should be called the children of God. Take heart, friends. Give yourself wholly to the Lord. Be wholly true to him. Walk in his statutes. Keep his commandments. You should and I should do that. But do that not so that we are saved, but because we are saved.